Good evening, everyone. If I could have everyone grab their seats, we could go ahead and get started, please. Hey, man, I've got a microphone. Well, I want to welcome everyone. I was asked not that long ago what I thought about doing a fraud seminar, and I thought, wow, that'd be a good idea. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Jason Hyska. During the day, I play the role of CEO of Sturgis Bank and Trust, but the rest of the time, I have the privilege and honor to serve as a deacon here at Lockwood Community Church. One of the roles of the deacons is to help take care of the church body. And when Seth Butters, one of my fellow deacons at a deacon meeting, said he thought a fraud meeting would be something that would be advantageous for people, I thought, wow, God is working and he's calling me, and this is kind of what I do as part of my job. So tonight with us, I have Tammy Smith, our security officer, and out in the lobby greeting people is Cathy Knapp, our community reinvestment and liaison officer. She's our community outreach person. So I first want to give thanks to Lockwood Church for allowing us to have this seminar here and to help hopefully educate everyone here about some of the fraud that is happening, because it is running rampant these days. We're going to talk about educating you about things to look for, things not to look for. We're not going to cover everything because it's impossible to do it in the time allotted tonight, but we'll open it up for questions at the end. But first, I would like to start in prayer. So if we would all bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we all come before you today to honor you, and we ask, Father, that the words that we're about to give and the wisdom help each and every one of us in our daily lives. And we pray, Father, that we don't fall victim to fraud, and if we do, we have the forgiveness and grace to react appropriately. And Father, we pray for the people that are committing the fraud, for they are truly not doing your work, and may you open up their hearts and soften them. And Lord, we ask for your blessing on this event. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So on the slide, obviously you can see my name is Jason Hyska. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Sturgis Bank and Trust. Give you a little background, Sturgis Bank and Trust is an 18-office community bank headquartered in Sturgis, Michigan. I have been there, Tammy and I were just discussing this, I've been there 28, almost 29 years now. I told Tammy and my wife I started when I was 6. Tammy started when she was 5, though. Next slide, Michael. We have Tammy, our security officer, and Cathy Knapp, which I've introduced. And now we're going to go right into fraud and ways to protect your identity. So again, this particular information is to help you protect yourself. When we get to the end of this, I'm going to tell you some stories, and I don't mean to scare you, but I do mean to scare you. I want you to be aware about what is going on and how best to do it. So to start with ways to protect your identity, first off, track what bills you owe and when they're due. You would be amazed. I've been in banking, like I said, almost 30 years. How many people don't understand what their bills are and where their money's going? That's always amazed me, but one of the things that I always ask someone when they come to my office and they can't balance their checkbook, and I say, well, you must have a lot of money. Well, what do you mean? Well, you don't care where it goes because you're not keeping track of it. So there is some on us as consumers to understand where our bills are and where our money goes and how to take care of it. So review your bills, check your bank account statement. If I had a nickel for every time somebody came to me and said, I can't balance my checkbook, and I said, when was the last time you looked at your statement? The answer is usually never. So that is one way, obviously, from a fraud perspective, to stay ahead of it. And I'll tell you a short story now. I had a local businessman come to me 2 weeks ago who had fraud committed on his payroll account. I asked him when the last time he balanced to his statement was. He said 2011. I said, well, if you're not keeping track of it, somebody else is for you. Get out and review your credit reports. There is a way to get to your credit report through freecreditreport.com, and we've got a little video here. If the guys upstairs can put on.
Identity theft happens. It's an unfortunate fact of modern life. But there are certain steps you can take to help keep your personal information from falling into the wrong hands. Every day you do things to protect what's most important to you. And you know what? You do them almost automatically. Routine things like looking both ways before you cross, brushing your teeth, and buckling your seatbelt. Another routine to get into is keeping tabs on your identity and personal information. Here are 5 easy ways you can do it. Read your credit card and bank statements carefully and often. Know your payment due dates. If a bill doesn't show up when you expect it, look into it. Read the statements from your health insurance plan. Make sure the claims paid match the care you got. Shred any documents with personal and financial information. Review each of your 3 credit reports at least once a year. It's easy and it's free. And before you know it, protecting your personal information can be as routine as locking your doors at night. For more tips and tools on dealing with identity theft, visit ftc.gov/ID theft. That's ftc.gov/ID theft.
Thank you. Different ways to protect your information. This deals with your phone, your computer, or any technology that you use, whether it's an iPad or anything else. Create a strong password. July 2024, believe it or not, is not a strong password. Your birth date is not a strong password. These days at the bank, our passwords have to be 12 digits and or characters long, and we use something called a multi-factor authentication. So every time I log into my computer, my phone gets a text that says, did you log into your computer? And it sends me a code. That is one way, if for whatever reason your accounts get hacked, your computer gets hacked, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, that the bad people can't get access to your information because you're the one that's getting that information. That's multi-factor authentication. And the other thing is pick security questions only you can answer. Now, I'm going to tell a little story here. So probably 10 years ago, I was traveling on a business trip to Washington, D.C., and I was in a rush to get out of the door that morning. It was probably 5 o'clock. I was being picked up, and in a hurry to leave, I left my wallet at home. I discovered that 2.5 hours later as I'm walking through the Metro Airport in Detroit, trying to get my tickets and discovering I didn't have a credit card, I didn't have a driver's license. So I was able, luckily, to get to the ticket counter, and they verified my identity through a lot of publicly known information that was out there about me. As an example, what was the year, make, and model of my first car? The title of that car is a state of Michigan public record, and they were able to dig through that. What address did you live when you were 7 years old? All of that information is publicly available to anyone who wants to dig into it. If you've ever Googled yourself, you can find things out about yourself you've probably forgotten. So when you pick a security question only you can answer, think twice about it. What is the middle name of your oldest child? It's probably not a really good security question. So as you go about ways to protect yourself, think through that process, because I can tell you the bad people are. And they have access to that same data information that allowed me to fly from Detroit, Michigan to Washington, D.C. in March of probably 2012. without a driver's license. Now, my wife was so kind to overnight me my wallet, which I got the next day, but that's one of the pieces of information that's out there. So just know that when you pick a security question, if it's public information, it's available and out there. If someone steals it, use multi-factor authentication, security questions, and secure devices. Passwords shouldn't be the same forever. So if you have a password on your computer at home, probably think about resetting it every 3 months, just out of habit. Kind of like the video said, brushing your teeth, changing your password is important. The other thing I will tell you, and this happens to a lot of people, it just happened yesterday at work. I was scrolling through Facebook on my lunch, as I tend to do sometimes, and my counterpart at the bank, the president of the bank, sent me a friend's request on Facebook. Now, I happen to know he's not on Facebook. He has an account, but he's not on Facebook. So I went and asked him, and sure enough, he was hacked. So what do they do with that information? You accept a friend's request, they get into your phone through some sort of computer virus, and then they steal whatever information's on your phone. So as a banker, you would think that cannot be a big deal. But on this device, I have access to my bank account. My password is on there. It has access to my retirement information. It has pictures of my children and my wife. It has their voices on my voicemail. Sometimes I save voice messages. All of that is information and data that they can use against you. So changing your passwords. So what did my friend do? He went into his Facebook account and changed his password. So now the hackers can't get back into that account. So his friend requests that were fraudulent stopped. So just another thing to secure your devices, change your passwords periodically, mix it up. Next slide. Keeping your security software, internet browser, and operating systems up to date. Oftentimes when you get your computer, it'll say there's an update. Oftentimes that's for security information. Always do the update. Sometimes it takes a few minutes, but always keep the updates. This is a big thing on the bottom. Never give your personal information to someone who calls, emails, or texts you. If you are concerned, end the communication and contact the organization that your information are trying to get. We're going to talk about that in a minute. One of the problems I have the most in life is I'm in a hurry to get something done today. That's a bigger problem with scammers because they're in a hurry to get your money, and they will create a sense of urgency that says something has to be done now, not tomorrow, now. I'm pretty certain that nothing in regards to my finances or yours has to happen today. Take a minute, take a pause. Never give your personal information out on the phone. Next slide, please. So how to avoid a scam? You can block unwanted calls. I'm sure we all get calls every day from people that we don't know that are happy to try to sell us something. There's a free national do not call registry. Another thing that's not up there, but on my phone I have a block number button. So I get calls from solicitors all the time. Oftentimes I just hit block the number. You can go to this extent. That's easier for me. That's what I do. That'll block that number from calling you. Again, Sharon? Sharon, the question is once you're on the do not call registry, do you have to update it year to year? And the answer is, Sharon, I don't know. My guess is yes, but I don't have an answer for that. So my advice would be call it every year. Just as a routine, just call it extent. Resist the pressure to act immediately. Know how scammers tell you to pay, and stop and talk to someone you trust. So, like I said, that sense of urgency, that when a scammer's calling you, they want your money now. They don't want it tomorrow, they want it today. So if somebody calls you and you get into that situation, take a pause, take a deep breath. Scammers pretend to be from an organization, you know. They say there's a problem or a prize. They pressure you to act immediately. And they tell you to pay in a specific way. Now, how do scammers tell you how to pay? They want you to wire the money, gift cards or cash reload cards, online through a website or social media such as Facebook, or cash apps right now, Venmo, PayPal, Zelle. Those are all fraught with fraud right now. And those are all payment methods that the scammers would like. And Michael, we've got a video.
Here at the Federal Trade Commission, we see a lot of different scams, but all scammers want to get your money as quickly as possible in a way that makes it hard to trace them and hard for you to get your money back. I'm going to tell you about some of the common ways scammers want you to pay. Once you know them, you'll know how to spot a scam, and you'll know to be careful if someone asks you to pay that way. First, there's wiring money. Somebody might call you, maybe about a prize you won, a loved one in trouble, or because you supposedly owe taxes or some kind of fee. The story sounds real, and maybe even alarming. The person on the phone rushes you to Western Union or MoneyGram to send the money. But wiring money is like sending cash. You'll almost never get it back, and scammers know that. Another favorite of scammers are gift cards or cash reload cards. Here's how it works. Those same people call, and again, there's a prize, a family emergency, or some fee they want you to pay. They tell you to go to the store and put money on a gift card, like an iTunes card, or a cash reload card, like MoneyPack, Vanilla Reload, or Reloaded. Sometimes they'll even stay on the phone with you while you go to the store. Once your money's loaded onto the card, they'll ask for the card's registration numbers. That lets them get the money right away, and you're left with nothing. So now you know, if anyone ever says you have to wire money or pay them with a gift card or cash reload card, that's a scam. No matter who they say they are or how urgent it seems, stop, get off the phone, talk to someone, and then tell us at ftc.gov/complaint.
Thanks, guys. Now we're going to talk about some different types of scam and how to avoid it. You guys will flip to the next slide. So check fraud. Believe it or not, people still write checks these days. Not as often as it used to be, but they still do. So how do you avoid check fraud? Take your mail to the post office. Don't put it in your mailbox outside the house. You question why. If most of you, like me, you may live in the country and you think it's safe, the mail driver drives by the house every day, I'm here to tell you it's not. It's not safe, folks. People are robbing mailboxes every day. Use a gel pen. Why a gel pen? Because you can't erase it. One of the most prevalent scams out there is somebody will steal a check you wrote to Consumers Energy, the bank. They'll wash it. How can someone wash a check? They'll erase the pen, the ink. So instead of writing a check to Sturgis Bank and Trust Company for your mortgage payment, Sturgis Bank and Trust disappears, and in the name line goes John Doe. John Doe takes that check. They take it to Sturgis Bank and Trust to cash it. It's a legitimate check. It's hard for us to tell that it's been washed because you didn't use a gel pen. You balance your statement at the end of the month and discover that, or you get a call from your mortgage company that says you didn't get your house payment. I'm here to tell you that happens every day. So take it to the post office, use a gel pen, or use bill pay from your financial institution. Or pay at the biller's website, or set up auto pay from your checking account. Those are all ways to avoid check fraud. Yes, sir. Pardon? Tammy, do you have the answer to that? That's a great question. So, next slide. What do you do if you're scammed? First off, stop talking to the scammer, block their number, shut off your computer. Contact the company or the transaction. So in most cases, it's your credit card company or the bank. Contact your financial institution and share your story to help others. The number one reason that people get scammed is because they may realize it when they're halfway through it, but they're ashamed or embarrassed to talk about it. And the people that I see get scammed that make me almost cry are the people that can least afford it. So one of the stories that I'm going to share with you tonight, there's 3 or 4 stories. We recently had a widowed woman who was living in a house that was paid for. She was working a minimum wage job. Her life was okay. She won the lottery. And in order to do that, she had to cash a $25,000 check and send the customer or the people back $8,000 in order to claim the $1 million prize that she won. So she came to the bank, she opened an account. The check took 3 or 4 days to clear. She withdrew the money the day after she opened the account, went to Western Union, sent them the money. She's now on a 20-year payment plan with the bank because we lost $9,000 that she sent out. The check came back fraudulent, and she can't afford $200 a month to make the payment. So at the end of the day, the bank's going to eat $9,000, and she is embarrassed, doesn't want to be seen, doesn't want to talk to anyone about it, would just as soon forget about it. I could tell story after story after story about people like that that thought they won the lottery, thought they won a trip to Greece, or widowers that found love on the internet. Talk to people. Talk to people in your family. Talk to your banker, your trusted financial resource. Talk to your pastor. Talk to somebody about it and try to get some advice. We all make mistakes, but that is the number one reason that I've discovered that people get scammed is they get in the middle of it and they don't want to admit to anyone, including themselves, that they made a mistake. We make mistakes every day. Please, please, please talk to someone about it. Next slide, please. Report frauds and scams. Again, contact your financial institution. Report it to the Federal Trade Commission. We're going to report it to the authorities, especially if it reaches a certain level. I'm sure that we'll also file additional paperwork that may get to the Federal Trade Commission in regards to that. How can your bank help you? Contact us as soon as possible. If you gave your checking account number out over the phone, odds are the next day it's going to have less money in it than it did the day before. Come see your bank, your credit union, wherever you're doing business at. Be honest with them. Say, I gave my account number out. I think it was a scam. The bank will most likely close that account out and open up a new account in your name. Now, I can tell you, if you come back to the bank 10 weeks in a row and say that you've given your account number out 10 different times, we're going to have a different conversation. You need to stop doing that. But come to the bank, close your account out, we'll open up a new one, and tell us your story. Because this seminar tonight is a accumulation of 10 years worth of history and real life stories about people that have lost money that didn't need to. And then we'll help you with your next steps. Another type of scam, next slide please. A romance scam. This one breaks my heart. Someone is meeting someone special on a dating website or an app. They talk several times a day, text, phone call, email. It's true love. They've never met the person. They make up a story and ask for money. People reported $547 million in losses in 2021. That's what reported. I can tell you it's probably 10 times that number. The story I have for here that I'm going to share tonight is I had a very trusted client of mine many years ago who lost her husband. She fell in love with someone on a dating website who was supposedly in Georgia, who was supposedly overseas. It was a dentist. The person was real. The dentist was a real person. His Facebook site got hacked. They duplicated it. They talked for 3 months. I tried to convince her that it was a scam. We actually sat down and talked about it. I stopped the transaction from happening. I can't stop you from taking your money out of the bank. If that's what you wanted to do, I can just stop the method with which you take it out. She wanted to wire the money to somebody in Saudi Arabia. $80,000 later, after I got her family involved, she realized that she had made a mistake. That's just another story. She was a widowed woman. She was lonely. Instead of talking to her family and her friends about it, she hid it. She was embarrassed. And I have not spoken to that woman in 20 years. I've gone out of my way to try to reach out to her, but she doesn't want to talk to me because she is totally ashamed. That's just one story. Tammy, who's our security officer, deals with this every day, and I can guarantee you there's probably one story a week she hears about this. So if you know someone in your circle that's recently widowed or even single, and they meet someone online and somebody asks for money, and you hear that, bells and whistles going off in your head saying, it's time to have a conversation. If you just met someone online, do they really need $2,500 for a plane ticket to come to Detroit? That's another one. Next slide. Investment scams. Promises big profit. There's no risk. They will help you learn to invest. They'll tell you how to send money, and they want your money quickly. Gift cards, payment apps, Apple Pay, Cash App, Zelle. If it's too good to be true, it is. Again, nobody needs money today. And no, you're not going to make 100% return on your investment in a week or a month or a year. Just, again, these are all, you think they're normal, natural things that you hear about, but I can guarantee you we've all probably been told about an investment that's too good to be true, and we need to invest money in it quickly, and at the end of the day, it may have worked out. These days, it's a scam. If it's too good to be true, it oftentimes is. Next slide. Computer pop-ups or an ad for free. This deals with your computer. Sometimes when your computer's been hacked, you'll receive pop-up ads. This slide, has anyone seen the movie The Beekeeper? That's this slide. So for those of you that haven't seen the movie, it's a little violent. It's kind of a bang-bang, shoot-'em-up movie, and sometimes I like to watch those. The premise of the movie is a widow woman who clicked on a pop-up ad on her computer as she was doing her finances, and in the 30-minute phone call after that to the company that was going to fix her computer for $149, they were able to hack into her computer because she typed in her passwords to her bank, and they wiped her account clean. That really happens. Again, don't give your information out over the phone. If your computer's broke, don't click on a pop-up ad. If you think it's broke, don't click on a pop-up ad. Take it to somebody that you know and trust. Have them take a look at it. This is along the same lines, avoid tech support scams. Legitimate technology companies will not call you and say your computer's broke or you need help. That's just not going to happen. And never click on a call number or a pop-up warning. If it shows up on your computer, I would shut the computer down and take it someplace else. Take it, again, to someone that you know or trust. Next slide, a phone scam. They come in many forms. They tend to make similar promises and threats, and they ask you to pay in a certain way. There is no prize, and no, you won't be arrested. Neither will your grandchildren. You don't need to decide now. Only scammers demand you pay certain ways, and government agencies won't call to confirm your sensitive information. So on this one, I've got a couple stories for you. I was recently at a conference in up north, and we had a panel of bankers talking about fraud. And everybody in this room's heard of artificial intelligence and understands what it is, or at least a little bit. We use AI at the bank. I can take a 500-page contract, I can input it into AI, and I can ask it questions, and instead of me spending 5 hours reviewing it and highlighting it and writing notes, I can ask it questions and it'll spit out answers. It's wonderful. It saved numerous hours of my time. What else can AI do for bad people? Is if you leave a message or you send a voice message and your phone's been hacked, they need 3 seconds of your voice to imitate your voice. At this conference, one of the bankers said, one of his clients, a rather well-to-do husband and wife, their kids were grown, the wife was getting ready to go on a trip. They got up that morning, they had coffee, her bags were packed, gave them hugs and kisses. She got in her vehicle and headed off to the airport. 10, 15 minutes later, he gets a phone call. It's his wife's voice, it's his wife's her phone number, and she's in distress. She's been kidnapped. He needs to send $25,000 to the kidnapper via Zelle, and it needs to happen now, or she's gonna die. He is beside himself. He doesn't know what to do. He gets out his phone. He's got him on speakerphone. He gets on Zelle, sends $25,000 out. Phone call ends. Picks up the phone, calls his wife. She's, "Hey, hon, how's it going? I'm at the airport. I just got here." What just happened? They hacked into the wife's phone. They knew that she was going on a trip. They knew when she was leaving her house because they hacked into her phone, and all of our phones have location monitors on there, and somehow that must have been turned on. In transit to the airport, they knew where she was going because that was part of the information. It was her voice because they got her voicemail message, and they were able to mimic her voice, and the husband was out $25,000. Folks, that money was gone because when you do that through a pay app, we can't get it back as a bank. That scares me. What should he have done? His wife just left for the airport 15 minutes ago. The phone number came up as her name, but not her phone number. Anytime you get a scam, whether it's an email or a phone call, oftentimes they may have your name or number of your loved one on there, but the number or the email address will be different. That's a telltale sign. So Tammy may have gotten an email from Jason Hyska saying, "Please wire out $5 million to this account number." And this is a true story. This has happened. The email says it's from Jason Hyska, but the email address is completely different. I've seen businesses lose millions of dollars on that scam alone because they'll go follow the wire instructions instead of picking up the phone to call someone. So artificial intelligence can be good when used properly, but just know that phone information, changing your password, updating that on a routine basis is important. Multi-factor authentication, and again, verify, verify, verify. If my wife left for the airport, I know it's 2.5 hours from door to door, and I know along that way I'm probably going to talk to her twice. Same thing with this particular individual. That $25,000 was gone. This was a real thing. It happened in March of this year, somewhere in mid-Michigan. And that was just one example of fraud that happened. And this was a very well-off, very well-educated person. Scammers don't care if you have an MBA or if you can't afford your monthly bills. I've seen both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. If somebody calls you on the phone, there is no prize, you won't be arrested. Another good scam for those of you that had grandparents or children, this happens a lot in spring break time. So I have 2 boys, 12 and 14. My oldest one's upstairs recording this. If he were to go on spring break, one of the scams that's out there is I get a call from him saying, "Dad, I'm in jail. I need $2,500. Again, his name on my phone, not his phone number. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Or Grandpa. That's the more appropriate one. "Grandpa, I need $2,500. I'm in jail and I don't want Mom and Dad to know about it. Where do I need to send it?" No thought asked. I think every grandparent in here would try to do everything they could to help their grandchildren. You've got to question that. Say, "You know what, grandson, let me call you right back." Oftentimes when you call back, grandson's sleeping, I hope, and "Dad or Grandpa, I'm fine." So again, nothing's in a hurry. But that's the type of pressure that you're put under on these circumstances. Romance scams, I've seen people get taken for $3,000 because somebody wants an airline ticket back into the States because they're in a foreign country, or they need money to pass through customs. This type of stuff happens all the time. And just when you think it can't happen to you, you're going to get that call. And people are too embarrassed to talk about it when it happens, and then they don't want to go talk to anyone else to say, "It was me that it happened to." Prize and lottery scams, this is another one. This is a very prevalent one, although I don't think it's as prevalent today as it once was. You're going to win the lottery. You won $5 million, Seth Butters. All you need to do is I'm going to send you a $50,000 check, send me $40,000 of it back. If you do it in 4 days, I'll get the money to you via wire. Send me the wire instructions. They'll send you a check for $50,000. Your instructions are to take it to the bank, deposit it, and immediately wire out $40,000. You can keep the $10,000. That's your fee for doing this. And then as soon as I get the wire, I'll send you $1 million. That's a scam. If you really want something, nobody's going to want you to pay for it. Nobody's going to send you money and ask for it back. This one, unfortunately, another story I'll tell. I had a woman who had a special needs child, single mother, barely making ends meet. She won the lottery. She won $1 million. They sent her a $2,500 check. She deposited it in her account, and she sent $2,000 back. She took the cash. She went to Western Union and sent the money back. She couldn't afford $200 for groceries. And here she is with a $2,500 fraudulent check, and $2,000 of that's gone. As a bank, we charge that money off. It's lost. You try to collect it, but we're not heartless. And I don't want her to not be able to feed her children. We run across that every day as well. That was a whole lot of information to cover in 40 minutes. I will open it up to questions. I've got Tammy Smith over here. Her job at the bank, every day, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, she deals with fraud. She deals with fraud of all kinds at all levels, whether it's personal fraud on your personal account, business fraud on a business account. All of those stories that I've shared with you folks tonight are true. I've either witnessed them, been a part of them, or lived through them. So this isn't, I said when we started, I don't mean to scare you, but you're going to be scared, and you should be. I, as a banker, view your money as yours, you work hard for it, and there are thieves out there, and it's not the way that you think about it, and they're doing everything they can to come after your money. And again, they don't have a bank, or you don't have a bank, they don't care. As part of that fraud seminar that I attended, one of the things I found most interesting is there are college students in foreign countries who work every day. Their job is to fraud people out of money to pay for their college. That's a true story. That's happening right now. As we speak, there's somebody in Africa, a call center, sitting down with data that they mined off the internet, because your public information and mine is out there, and they're trying to scam us. That happens every day. So with that, I'll open up for questions. I've got another microphone up here.
Go ahead, sir.
We have accounts with your bank, and on my checking account, I have the security option. Is it still necessary to go look at credit reports? Isn't that what that does?
If you've signed up for the features on the secure checking, absolutely. Yep. You sign in, you go in there, and you can pull your credit report twice a year.
I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Well, you just want to look at it and make sure what's listed there is actually what you have. You know, if you've got a credit card, if you've got a truck payment, you've got a house payment, a mortgage, cell phone. You know, some of the scams, your social security number is the only number you get. You don't get a new one. So if someone has that, they can use that. They can get a loan. They can buy a cell phone. They can sign up for a lot of things.
I get usually just an email that says we've been monitoring your credit.
Yep.
So how do you actually go look at the report then?
When you sign into the secure checking piece of it, there's a spot there you can pull your credit report and actually print it off or just pull it up. And then it shows you each thing you have.
Is that also in the online banking?
No, it is not. It's a separate feature.
Okay.
But Don, in regards to that account, if there's a hit on your credit report, you're going to get a notice. So if somebody goes out and applies for credit, or you do, that app will give you an alert that says somebody pulled your credit report.
Okay.
So no one's going to get a loan without pulling your credit report. But to Tammy's point, we have dealt with clients who, unbeknownst to them, had 4 mortgages across the United States that were paying at that point in time and had been paying for a while, but didn't realize that their identity had been stolen. and they were now the victims of identity theft, and they had houses in California, Oregon, Washington State, New York City. They didn't realize that.
The online banking feature, by the way, is a great thing in my book. I check that almost every day, and
Yep.
one time I found where they charged something to her card that wasn't valid, and we were able to.
Well, and another thing along online banking, for those of you that have it, it doesn't matter where you bank at, oftentimes there's an alert section you can sign up for. So you can get text alerts or email alerts if a transaction over a certain dollar threshold is out there. So as an example, I could set mine for any transaction over $100, I can get a text that says check number 1234 for $250 is cleared. It will give me that notice. So to your point, I don't have to get in and look, but I can see that. So if you didn't write that check or that withdrawal, then you can certainly, that's a flag to go in and do that. Almost all banks with online banking offer that as a service for free.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, just a minute, there's a microphone coming. Up here, Tina.
I have been receiving phone calls from, it's called Portfolio Recovery, and I've received several of them. I keep blocking them. They're always different numbers. And I mentioned it to a couple of our children when they were at our house, and they said, have you checked your credit report? Because they said somebody may have tried to open a credit card in your name or purchase something. It's a good idea to check your credit report.
Yeah,
So-
it's a good idea to check your credit report.
So what I did is a couple of the banks their system has been hacked, and they have you join, and then you're to give the information. And what I did was I went to a couple of those sites, and the alert said there weren't any alerts, but I'm still concerned about it.
You should get a copy of your credit report.
I'm sorry?
You should get a copy of your credit report. Portfolio Recovery Services is a collection agency. So they're calling you because they're trying to collect money, which tells me that there is something out there, whether it's a credit card, a car payment, mortgage, could be medical collections, could be any variety of things.
It could still be a scam, though.
Yes, it could.
So checking your credit report is gonna let you know if there's something out there that's the only way you're gonna know. Because if there's something you didn't apply for that's out there, showing past due or whatever, the credit report's the only way for you to confirm that.
And after the meeting, get with me, I can give you the website. You can pull a free credit report, and I'd be happy to sit down and go through that with you. And that offer goes for anyone here. If there's something after the meeting where you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or Tammy. We're happy to help, regardless of whether you have an account at the bank.
Yes.
We're here to offer help and advice when it's needed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also received information when I paid my taxes about a scam that's going around where the bad people can get in to somebody's home that has already been paid for or not, and put it in your name in theirs, the home. And it gave a phone number to call to prevent the fraud of that. So I
there's-
did do that.
So there's two things there. That is a type of fraud. It's much more difficult to pull off, because essentially what they're doing is they're creating a chain of title to your real estate, and they're deeding themselves into it. So when you buy or sell real estate, there's a deed involved in the state of Michigan,
Right.
and they're saying, I now have a deeded interest in that property, and it's a fraudulent deed. So the type of service you're talking about, I'm unfamiliar with, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This has happened to us. We bank at a couple of institutions here in town. And a couple of years ago, I had been shopping and was telling my wife what I had bought. And I went to show her the payment thing, and oh my goodness, there were 14 different payments to the same person on her card that she never uses, which was interesting. We got that one straightened out real good. We went to the institution the next morning. There were 15 to 20 people in line in front of us waiting to get the same thing taken care of. Now, a little over a year ago last November, I did something silly. I called a number, which I have on my phone, but I called a number I got on Google, and it was a fraudulent number. And when you say, talk to somebody, I called our youngest son. And some of you know that I sing and I write songs. I wrote a song, If Grandma Was on Facebook Today. In the middle of that song is a conversation with Grandma about, no, just shut your computer down, Grandma. I'll be over. Don't touch that. Just shut everything down. This is what he told us to do that night. And we did. He came over, got it all cleared up and everything. But I'm beginning to realize I ordered something on Facebook last night, and I don't think I'm going to get my $42 watch.
Probably not.
Because I immediately got a notice from one of the financial institutions in town we do business with that is attached to my PayPal account. Said, well, there'd been a lock put on our card number on there. One thing you don't want to do if they ask you a question, do not say yes. Don't use that word yes, because then they've got your voice locked in saying that. And I didn't. I said, well, I didn't do that. I said, I may have made a mistake, and I went back and paid out of the PayPal balance. But I'm still probably not going to get my $42 watch back.
Good story. Yeah, PayPal, Marketplace, eBay, all those that we are familiar with, just be cautious. Not all of them are bad, but you got to know what you're looking at. And if it's, again, too good to be true, it probably is. I had my aunt, she had bought some furniture, patio furniture online. It was good deal. It was supposed to be Home Goods or some other place like that. Looked kind of like the site, but it really wasn't. Over $300 later, and she never got the furniture, and it's been over a year. So just be cautious.
It's a nice watch.
Yeah.
But did you order? Did you order it with a credit card though? Oh, because if you order with a credit card, I have done that once. It was a bad company and they instantly removed it, but like a bank can't just remove it because it's not a credit card.
It depends on the way. Visa does have, what I want to say, rights to where we do that, but you have to dispute it first. So if we don't know about it, and there's still time frames involved even with credit cards. So if you wait 6 months down the road and then finally look at your statement and find out, okay, you've had $20 coming out for the last 6 months, but it wasn't anything you authorized. Some of those things they're still too late even for us and even for the credit card companies. So yeah, the sooner we know, the better off we can help you decide what we need to do and how we can help you with that.
On the deed thing, I've seen advertisements on how you could lose your property or whatever. Is there a way to go and just double check that something hasn't happened already? You just go to the deeds office and talk to them, or?
So when it comes to a chain of title on your property, when you purchase, if you've bought it in the last probably 40 years, you receive what's called an owner's policy of title insurance. That protects you up to that point in time from anything that happened in the past to that chain of title. Moving forward, if you're worried about it, there's a couple ways you can go about it. One of the ways that I advise people is go to the county land resource center website. So in Branch County, you can go to the equalization department and pull up your property, and it will actually tell you if there's any deed transfers on that property, and that's free.
Okay.
So that's one way that I advise people to do that, to see that. Again, that particular scam, I've heard of it. I've never seen that one, because to pull off that on a piece of real estate is much more difficult than it is to go around and collect $2,500 from every person in the room.
Okay.
Okay, occasionally we hear of companies that have said that their information has been compromised. And so they sent out a letter to you saying that your information with us may have been compromised. So what should you do about that?
If they're offering you any type of free credit monitoring, you want to sign up for it.
Okay.
And I suggest you notifying your bank also, because in those data breaches, a lot of times, what are they getting? Social security number, possibly, your date of birth, all that type of information that you don't want stolen. So if you do have something like that, and we've had a few, let us know. We put a lot of alerts on our accounts. You don't see them, but anybody that's doing anything with your or the phone you call, whether you're in person at one of our branches, there's alerts that come up that will notify us that maybe you've had an issue. So we're extra cautious. We might ask more questions. We might ask for identification. We've been putting passcodes on our accounts or phrases or anything like that of anybody that might have had an issue or just wants an extra security. A lot of times over the phone, people call the bank, they want to know certain things on their accounts. Well, with AI like Jason talked about and just everything going on, we don't like to do a whole lot of stuff over the phone. It's really hard for us to know who you are. So we might ask other questions. We can't really ask anymore what your social security number is because that can be hacked. We might ask you, what's your last deposit? When did you use your debit card last? You know, those type of things as opposed to normal things you always hear. So keep those things in mind too. Yes, sir. Did you have another question?
Yeah, but I forgot it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, who should you give your social security number to? And who should you not give your social security number to?
No, nobody for the most part.
We're asked by doctor's offices, by all kinds of other people for a social security number.
Well, your doctor's offices and places that you know, there's no do for your insurance. But if you're talking to anybody on the phone or you go to any websites, you know, be real cautious. Depending on what you're doing, you don't want to input any of that information. I know there's people out there, there's loan websites, there's credit card websites. Just make sure you're going to a right website that you're wanting to apply for, because there is a lot of scam ones out there. Check with your banks. They might offer a credit card. They might be able to help you find that information a little better.
I received an email from our credit union stating that we now have to be careful of phone calls that we get from the credit union stating that there appears to be a problem because somehow somebody has gotten into their system. And I've had instances where I've charged something on the card and I'll get a phone call through the phone, and I also get an email saying, hey, we've got a concern, did you do this? And they're saying now, if you get that through the telephone, don't call them back, because if you do that, of course, they're going to be asking for your account information, which is when I have done it legitimately before, that, you know, in verifying our credit card. So they're now telling us, you get that phone call, you get a message, call the bank itself. So that just, I don't know if anybody else has gotten that information, but that just came last week from our credit union.
Sure. If you're ever unsure of a phone call, a financial institution or yours, hang up and look up your phone number and call it back. Give you. Look it up and call that number back.
We, a few years ago, decided we don't want to take out any more credit cards. We're not going to buy any property. We don't need any additional credit. And we froze at all three credit agencies our credit. Is there any negative to that? I know I can't, I'd have to unfreeze it if I wanted to do something. But our daughter had a huge identity theft issue. It really scared us. And so that's what we did. So any comment?
I think that's a great idea, and even in your folder, there is a card that talks about that. I don't know as far as loans and things like that. I've not heard of it being negatively effective.
There's no negative impact. If you had to go out and borrow money for whatever reason, you would just simply have to unfreeze your credit report. So by freezing it, all it means is I can't get in and look at it. So as a financial institution, if you came to me to borrow money, one of the first things I do is get your permission to get a credit report. You would have to unfreeze that. So payments that you may still make, credit cards you may still have, are still being reported to the credit bureau. But by freezing it, it blocks anyone else from getting access to it. So it just simply means you can't get it unless you, using whatever passcodes they give you, unlock it.
Okay.
That's always a good thing. Tina's coming with the microphone.
Okay, I've got 2 questions. How long should you keep a Visa credit card account before you cancel it? Will it lower your score, your credit score, if you cancel?
So a couple different things with that. So depending upon how much credit you have outstanding, if the card has 0 balance and you're not using any credit, if you've got the card open for 12 months and you're not used it, I would say, especially if you have another card that you may use, you only need 1 card. If you have multiple cards, you don't need to keep them open. So to the answer to that question, it's not hurting your credit score, but it will show as the amount of available credit that's available to you. So if you start to use it, that will negatively impact your credit up to a certain level.
Okay, I use a Visa and I look at it on my phone and I check that quite frequently, plus I get paper. Okay. What do you consider the best way to buy things? Is it debit, credit, or with a check? Now I'm beginning to wonder what to use.
Well, most of your cards nowadays have the chip technology, which is a lot securer than your strip on the back. You always want to use your chip anywhere. And they should, all the machines now are required to have chip. So if you've got a strip card that doesn't have chip yet, it's coming, or you ask for one that does have a chip. They go through like the multi-factor authentication piece. There's a script in there that it runs it through. So it verifies then your information and asks for a zip code for the most part. So if you pay at a gas station, a lot of times you want to make sure that they have like tape over the box where your cards are. Make sure that tape's not ripped, because then there's skimmers they can put over those that can read your cards. There's a lot of things, but having a lot of credit cards, like Jason said, as far as the credit, I don't know about that, but for security and fraud, if you're not using a card, you should close it and get rid of it, because that leaves it open then for a $5,000 balance, and you know that you didn't have a balance on it, and you might not be checking your statement like we did talk about, but because you know you don't have a balance, you might not look at it as regularly as you do the one Visa you were talking about. So
I can't remember what I was going to ask. Okay, because sometimes I'm told it's better to use your debit card because it limits the amount that can be scammed versus, but I know on credit cards, if there's anything that shows up funny, they'll text me.
in your debit card, you can set restrictions on your debit card also. The biggest thing with your debit card, if you're using it as, and you can use it as credit, just means you're not entering a PIN number. So if you go to a store and you do anything and they want you to choose credit or debit, I always use credit, because I don't want the person behind me or anybody standing around me, they can see what you're putting in. So you happen to be putting your groceries in your cart, doing whatever, you didn't put your card away, or you thought you did, but maybe it fell out of your hand. Person behind you or someone else in the vicinity that you might not even be looking for picked your card up and they've already got your PIN.
Is it necessary to sign the back of Visa cards? I've heard everything.
You know, anymore, I hate to break it to you, but you should, but most stores now, they have a threshold limit where they don't even ask you to sign. And a lot of times it's if you spend $50 or less, it's going through regardless. And if you're going to a machine that we're in a world, unfortunately, no one wants to work. So we've got machines doing, you're checking out your own groceries, right? So no one's looking at it anyway. So just be real secure, make sure your stuff's put back in your purse, your wallet, before you put groceries in your car or anything else.
The purpose behind signing the back of your card is so the clerk will verify your signature to what's on the back of your card. How many of us have used a credit card and had someone say, oh, I want to verify your signature? I've never had it happen to me. But that's the purpose behind signing the back of that card. So.
Right, yeah, 10 years ago, and unfortunately, they don't even if you put C driver's license, they don't even flip the card over.
Yeah.
They just want you to swipe it, yeah.
We have debit cards that we routinely use as credit
Yep.
rather than debit.
Yep.
Could you speak to the issue, is the purchase protected in the same way that it would be with an actual credit card where, and I'm not sure I've got this straight, but with a regular credit card, if you dispute it, you can get your money back. Is that also true if you use the debit card as a credit card?
Yeah, there's a little different process with those, because if you're using it as a credit, you're not inputting a PIN. So if you're inputting a PIN, the assumption is that you have your card in your hand because you're the only one that you know the PIN number. So can you dispute it and go through absolutely. Does it guarantee that you might get your money back? Maybe not, because the assumption is you had the PIN number. So that's why it's, you want to be real careful when you use your PIN. When you go to ATMs and things like that, that's for your PIN.
There's protection?
Oh yeah, it's like a credit card, because that's where the Visa logo comes in. So those requirements are in there that, yes, the rules, yep.
What do you do if you have your wife sign the checks all the time, and you go in and sign and they say it isn't your name?
Probably ought to have your wife come in the bank. That hasn't happened. I've been involved in that situation before. Usually, I know the person. You know who you're doing business with. If you happen to be doing business with someone you don't know, my suggestion is find someone inside that building that you do know, and that can verify that. So that doesn't happen nearly as often as it used to, but it used to happen all the time.
I was kind of embarrassed about this, but I was on Facebook and they hacked my account, and now they call, even today, it's been 6 weeks now, that I could have sold a Honda car probably 100 times already, and I thought maybe I should go not sell headstones anymore and go to sell cars, because I seem to get everybody's questions. And then also they asked all my friends for, they'll say this is Audrey Taylor, but it's a different phone number, like you said, different email, and they've asked my friends for their phone number and stuff like that. And like last night, I had 6 people call me and ask me if that was mine, and I said no, that account was hacked, and I tell them to write that in there, and they block those people, and then they don't ever bother them again. Yep. But my son-in-law was really wise, because he told him that he would buy, I was selling furniture, outdoor furniture too, because that reminded me when you said that about your mom. I thought it was probably mine, But it had palm trees in the background and everything, and I'm going, can people be to, know we're in Michigan, do I have a palm tree? I must have a garden that I didn't know about, But it is crazy, and the world is crazy today, and still today, it's been 6 weeks, and still today, they're bothering people, and on a Facebook account, and I've tried to close it, and they won't do it.
Yeah, we have to look out for ourselves, because unfortunately, everybody out there that's on any kind of websites or looking and doing your searches, the pop-up thing is huge. Don't ever click on one. Don't click on the links. Text messages, you get links. People send text messages separately because you've filled out something and you've given them your phone number, and then they start the same thing. So just be cautious.
Can you address what happens to your visa when, say, you are the primary signature on there, and say you die, and someone else might have a secondary signature on there? You know what I'm talking about? Can you address that for people? Because my twin sister, when her husband died. They had she was not the primary signature, and it created such havoc trying to get things settled. Can you kind of address that a little bit for people on death?
So a credit card is a loan, and when you say primary signature, secondary signature, if in that situation you have a borrower and a co-borrower. So upon the borrower's passing, the co-borrower who signed the card is still reliable for paying that debt. So anytime you sign on the bottom line, so to speak, and there's debt outstanding, even if one of the borrower passes away, the obligation falls to the other borrower.
They closed that account immediately, and she didn't even tell them. I mean, they just closed her account. That was up in Upper Michigan.
Yeah, anytime someone passes away, if I have a checking account as an example, we have our systems do a death search. And the primary reason we do that is to discover if someone has Social Security direct deposited, because Social Security is going to notify us and they're going to want their money back at a certain point in time. So some banks and credit card companies will do the same thing. So upon the passing, when a certain amount of time is gone, they will do that search and they may freeze the account, as an example. If there's a balance owed on it, they're probably going to try to collect it.
Okay, so I'm primary, and I have automatic accounts on there. Say if I die, can Dan still use that credit card, or
Is he a signer on that card?
if he were a signer on that card?
If he were a signer on that card, it is his debt.
Okay, but can he still use that?
He should still use the card, yes.
Even though I die?
Yep. He should have a card in his name.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
because I just went through such terrible times with my twin, and
Yeah.
especially if it being on automatic accounts and having to redo all that stuff was terrible for her.
Yep.
Yeah, and credit cards are a little different than your checking and savings and everything else you have. So if you're talking about checking accounts, if they're a joint account, that joint owner is the owner after they die, so.
We stopped answering our phone unless we know the number or the person that's listed. But our kids were really upset when we first stopped, because it was quite some number of years ago. We stopped answering the phone, and we said, if you kids call, you know what number to call. And that you've called, and we'll call you right back.
I don't disagree with that. I don't know who all has landlines. You do? Okay. And there's nothing wrong with it. They're still out there. Those are the ones that get the most fraud calls. I don't have a landline. I still have my cell phone. And like Jason said earlier, I have to block calls every day. I keep getting text messages that I've qualified for loans. I get 3 every day. I delete them and just block the numbers. I don't even respond when they say, hey, respond to 2 to delete it. I did that 3 times for 1 and it still comes up. So like me, I have my phone with all the numbers that are important to me with the names. They're programmed in. Your caller ID, same thing. If they're out there, you're going to see a name. And it sounds like you've said, okay, leave me a message. I'll call you back. But I don't blame you. I would do that today. It saves you. These people are so savvy. And like Jason said, it doesn't matter if you have a bachelor's degree, if you're educated, you're not educated, you're old, young, it doesn't matter. They're smooth talkers, to be honest. I've talked to a few of them myself, and a story I've had, they keep you on the phone nowadays. They try to scare you. I had a customer of ours. They had her so scared she had went to one of our branches, pulled out, I want to say, I can't remember, probably $5,000. And she went to another branch, pulled out some more. She finally made it to the main office where I'm at. And they had called me up and I talked to her, but I was talking to her long enough that she was still scared, but finally I started telling her scenarios, and they finally, clicked that this isn't right. They were still on the phone. Her phone was plugged in her car. She didn't want to go out to get her phone, to even shut it off. So I went out there, I picked up the phone, I had them on mute, brought them back in, and I talked to them in an office, but I kept asking them questions. I know what to do. To the point where they didn't want to even talk to me anymore, and they hang up. But again, like Jason, we're happy to help. I don't mind that at all. It makes me frustrated that there's people out there that do that to other people. So.
Okay, here.
They should, or have someone that can help you with that. But again, if you are not a customer of ours, my card is in that folder. Give me a call. I can help you. I can tell you what you need to ask other institutions, or credit unions, whatever, of our process that, they're all regulated just like we are. But again, there's things that you can tell me your story. I'll tell you exactly what you need to do to help. Doesn't matter if you're a customer or not.
Okay, we've gotten emails supposedly from people we know, including the former pastor of this church, indicating something or other.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that happens because somehow their phone lists that they have there have been compromised, and someone has stolen all of the callers that they usually use and use those to impersonate themselves.
Yeah, that does happen, unfortunately. Like Jason said, our information, if you ever Google yourself, there's a lot out there you don't think is out there as you've done things. Suggestion for that is to call that person, send an email back, find someone who does.
Don't reply to that email.
Yeah, don't reply to that one, but, try to verify before you even respond. Especially for someone you think it is. But maybe it's been 6 months ago or years, then you've talked to them and all of a sudden you're getting an email. It's a scam. It's someone trying to get you to click on something.
Well, I want to say thank you for spending this time to educate us all. I was talking to my son Kyle before we came here, and he says, Dad, he said, they ought to have a laminated cheat sheet that people can set by their computer or by their phone, and with all these little red flags. Is something like that out there?
We could do something like that, but unfortunately there's so many things. You would probably have a book. I mean, I had a hard time choosing on what pamphlets to put in that would be beneficial to you. We have something at the bank that has about 5 or 6 things that are kind of a warning or thing. I'm happy to give some of those to Jason to hand out at church. Absolutely.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Yep.
Where do you suggest that you keep your passwords? There are so many passwords now that you have to, I can't remember them all.
Yes.
Where do you suggest to keep them?
Well, I'll tell you, I've got a couple different things. My personal stuff, I have a book that I keep at home with my stuff that isn't anywhere else but there.
Where do you keep the book?
Anywhere you want it. If you've
Just
got
someplace
where you might be the only one to know it. Maybe it's under your mattress. Maybe it's in your sock drawer. Maybe it's in a sock. I don't know. Somewhere where it's not just laying out by your computer or a normal place someone would look for it.
Is it safe to have them on your computer?
If you're in the right spot, I know there's programs, and unfortunately I don't know what those are, but I can happily get some of those that keep your passwords and you log into them. I have one at work. IT, like Jason said earlier, we should add one of our IT techs here to answer those type of questions. But I'm happy to get that information and give back to Jason. He can share with you next time.
My advice, when in doubt, put it on paper, put it in your sock
Yeah.
drawer.
Yeah.
Because if it's on your computer and your computer's connected to the internet and you get hacked, it's available for whatever they want to find.
We try to get rid of paper, but there's still certain things that paper is still still good for. Tina's got one more person. She'll come back up there.
From what I'm hearing right now, is it better to use your credit card for everything?
It's better to use cards in general, just for the sake,
Like I'm
you're
saying, I know someone that pays all his bills by credit card. And basically, that's all he does. That's all he uses is a credit card for everything. Now, is that safer or not?
your credit card, your debit card, they're the same type of thing. The numbers are different, so they're not your actual like checking account number. So when you pay by the cards, it's easier for us to close the card as opposed to closing the checking account and starting things all over because the numbers are different. So some people that pay just by credit cards and pay all their bills with credit cards, they might have a Cabela's cards and earn points. There might be points, there might be other things that they're earning by doing that, and then they just pay that off once a month or however they might do it. Is there a safer way either way? No, unfortunately not.
I think the safest thing to do is it doesn't matter what tool you use, stay on top of it.
Yeah.
One of the first things that we talked about was, you know, monitoring your money is like brushing your teeth. You need to do it every day. And while that may sound like it's extra work, in this day and age, you need to know what's going on with it. So I think once a day, get in your phone, look at your app, get online, look at your bank statement each month. It doesn't matter whether it's a debit card or a credit card, doesn't matter how you use it, just know what's going on with it. I think that's the most important takeaway that I can give to everyone tonight is be on top of what you're doing with what you've got. Because if you're not, I'm telling you, I've been in this business almost 30 years, I can't count how many people I've talked to that have no clue where their money goes. They have no idea. They use their debit card, they swipe it, as long as it's accepted, they move on, they write checks, they don't know if they've got money in the account for it. I just got paid yesterday, I don't know why I can't make my mortgage payment. If somebody scammed them, the story I told at the beginning, a business owner had his payroll account, he hadn't balanced since 2011. It's 2024. That stuff happens all the time. Stay on top of your stuff. And by the way, that business owner was scammed $18,000 over a 2.5-year period. That's a true story. We're still working through that story right now. So it doesn't matter what tool you use, just make sure you're staying on top of it and monitoring it.
Tina?
One thing that's a little scary with a computer is you have bank accounts, you have investment accounts, things like that on your computer, but just about everything that will ask you for your ID and a password. And now Microsoft comes along and memorizes your password. So you put in your ID or it automatically comes up when I click on the bank. The ID comes up and the password comes up and all you have to do is hit enter. And that's kind of scary to me that information is out there and I'm using it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't save my passwords like that, so I have to type mine in every time. I always say no to those for that reason right there, because then it always grabs my phone, for instance. I have a security passcode on my phone because of all of that. But if someone grabs it, I don't want them to know my code because then all my stuff is in there, and then I've saved my passwords to come up. So all they have to do is click on that app. So I don't personally do that for that reason right there. They have to know it.
Folks, let's get one more question, and then we'll be available in the lobby for a little bit. That offer was earnest. Tammy Smith has her card in the folders. You'll find me here almost every Sunday, every Wednesday night. Most Thursdays, I'm a member of Fire Shop, so I'll be over next at the barn. Plug for Lockwood's Fire Shop. It's a men's group. If you haven't been there, you're missing out if you're a guy.
Where we're located, we do not have cable access to the internet. It's all Wi-Fi. Just exactly how secure is the online banking for someone who only has Wi-Fi access to do that?
That's a good question. It's like anything else, password protect your Wi-Fi so it's not open to anybody else to use. So when I sign into my Wi-Fi, I have a password on it. So anybody driving by or parked in my my driveway can't connect to my Wi-Fi to use it as bad intentions or anything else. So if you just have Wi-Fi, and that's the only thing I can get, I live out in the country too, just enough that there's nothing else but Wi-Fi through the phone line. So you want to make sure that if you don't have a password on that, you can add one.
I want to thank everyone for coming. Again, that was an earnest offer. If you've got questions, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to help. Thank you.